Welcome to another episode of the Prospective List here on Tales from the Flipside. Aaron, cue the music.
I hit the wrong one first.
No worries. So, yes, thank you everyone for joining us today live. Who do I have with me today? At the top, we got Red Hood Comics.
What's up, guys? Glad to be here. It's your favorite neighborhood comic presser. Let's get on with it.
Nice.
Let's go, baby.
Yep, best presser in Texas, and of
course we have Aaron Easy. So.
Yep, and then same Instagram tag and same whatnot tag. I'll have a sale this Sunday, selling some of the books I picked up from Dallas Fan Expo.
Very nice. So yeah, let's get into it.
Oh, we have a new challenger.
New player has entered.
Fight.
Say what up, Knife? For anyone who isn't familiar, Knife, go ahead and introduce yourself to the public.
I'm the Knife Wonder. I'm just a guy. I paid them to be on this show because I was desperate. That's what some will probably say. Y'all know I've always been Flipside adjacent. Just gonna be on Flipside a little bit more now. Nothing really changing. I always rock with Flipside. A lot of guys from the Flipside family gave me a lot of my first chances in connecting with the community and helping grow my platform. So I'm gonna do whatever these guys need me to do. If it's the shows 5 days a week they need me to be on, I'll be on shows 5 days a week.
We appreciate that. So thank you for being here.
You're like the cousin that moved in now instead of just
exactly.
the cousin
to come over and eat all the food.
Yeah, it's like that episode of every. It's that episode of every sitcom from the 90s. It's like. All right.
Alrighty.
Let's hop into it. And Knife, feel free to jump in at any point in time and just riff on a book that interests you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So at number 10, we have FF Volume 2, number 8. This is the first appearance of Kid Immortus. So this book roughly has 30,000 sales and only 6 graded copies on the census, on the CDC census. So it's first appearance of Kid Immortus. It's basically playing into that whole, we've had multiple characters in the kid realm introduced. It's the Young Avengers play. It is a riff on the whole Kid Loki. It's a Kang play. So it's just all around. At this point, people are just covering their bases when it comes to Kang, when it comes to future MCU appearances. So yeah, I mean, it's a book that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but you can probably find in back issue bins for the cheap. It's if somebody's paying attention, it's probably a $5 book. If they're not paying attention, it's probably quarter bin. So definitely be on the lookout. At number 9, we have Daredevil Volume 2, issue number 55.
All right, so this is a viewer submission from Pat Lack on Instagram. So shout out to him. And what he was writing was that this is part of the same run as Daredevil 9, 10, and 11. And so this is a David Mack cover, and it's undervalued in comparison with issues 9 and 10. This is definitely a banger cover, and he writes that you better find them before they heat up during the Hawkeye show, and also be on the lookout for a newsstand edition.
Yeah, that's a beautiful cover. I mean, David Mack, that's it. That's him at his best. I mean, my God.
yeah, I just love how he's progressed his art since then.
Yeah.
But he still has that same style, but seems like his color palette has expanded, and then where it's a lot more vibrant, but you can definitely see the roots of where he got that influence from this run.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love David Mack's artwork. One thing I will say about 55 and I think it's maybe 51 or something like that from this run, you can always find these in back issue bins. Of course, you're really not gonna find the two big key books from this run. but you can always find these in back issue bins, $4 or $5. And I always thought these were great pickups just because of the cover art alone. But this books like this, man, is really, in my opinion, is where you can really get ahead in the hobby. I don't know how many of these I done passed up that now I'm kind of like, dang, I should have bought even more of these. Now that I'm actually realizing that Echo is going in the MCU is going to be a real thing, and it's just not hyperbole anymore.
No, absolutely.
And then our teammate Jason Shaw says that there's lots of Echo key moments between issues 51 through 55.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
At number 8, we have Daredevil, Volume 2, Issue 112.
Yeah, this has always been like undervalued, but like ever since they announced like Hitmonkey and like she's gonna be a part of that cast, although animated. I wish it was live action. I don't know how they would do the Hitmonkey, but anyway, like this is like all within that Deadpool. I mean, Daredevil universe, and like she's a hit. You could think that she could cross over to live action and somehow fit in that world there, but yeah, I mean, like if you see this in back issue bins, pick it up because like as soon as that show comes out, she's gonna be a hit. I mean, for sure.
Absolutely. And definitely on that note, I want to shout out Tom Feaster. He is a comic book artist who was part of the production team for Hitmonkey. So, his work will be prominently featured on the show. So yeah, definitely wanted to shout him out. But yeah. So kind of speaking on that whole Hitmonkey, the animated side of Disney and things not necessarily ending up on Disney Plus, but maybe ending up on Hulu. I mean, it's the same artistic style and same grittiness that we saw in with the likes of Invincible. So there's some things that just at least initially aren't going to translate well to live action, and having a very gory monkey attacking, murdering people type of show, I think it's best laid on Hulu. Honestly, it probably don't even make sense to put that on Disney Plus. So I mean, I'm still hoping for its success. I'm hoping that people watch. I'm definitely going to watch because if this is successful, it opens the door for many other characters that just aren't necessarily Disney Plus friendly to still get their time in the sun.
Well, I mean, that's exactly right too, because MODOK, I think that's what initially kicked it off. Because we heard so many arguments going back and forth between Marvel and Hulu, oh, this is going to launch. Oh, no, it's not. And then all of a sudden, it came out, and then everyone, I feel like, a good majority of people enjoyed the series. They either loved it or you hate it, right? I mean, it's this kind of the same thing with, what is the show that they originally based that kind of animation style off of? Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
Like people either love it or hate it. And it's that same kind of thing, but it's now Marvel related. And so everything that got canceled by Hulu, I feel like has a second chance now to actually show up and then build something within the Hulu Marvel whatever.
Yeah. So more on the whole Hulu cancellations. I say air quotes because it seems like that wasn't really the case. But more on that later on in the list. There's definitely some more opportunities for us to speak on that. At number 7, we have Invincible 135, the April Fool C2E2 variant.
Yeah, so this was submitted by Steve, and it's the current value is less than 30, which is double from March, probably right around the time of when Invincible started. Spider-Gwen and Invincible April Fool's sketch variant is done by Ryan Otley. Invincible seasons 2 and 3 are coming, so I'm sure a lot of people are excited about that. And Spider-Gwen, she continues to grow in popularity. This is a Diamond Retailer Summit variant, likely less than 1,000 printed, in the print run, and it could be significantly less. There's also a color version of this cover that exists, which I believe was a B cover, and it was open to order, if I'm not mistaken. Does anyone on the panel know for sure on that?
I was looking it up today. And I could not find out one way or the other for sure. But I know what guy to ask, and I'm going to ask him tomorrow just so we can get final word on that. But I think this might just be one of the ones where we probably won't get a definitive answer, but we do know this. There was not a lot of people ordering any type of Invincible books around this time.
Right.
Pretty much none of Invincible is high order, especially these issues within the hundreds. So for this to be a retailer variant, even if the black and white was open order, or if the color version was open order, I don't really think it makes a difference because it's still low. It's going to be low quantity on these either way.
Yeah.
This is not a book where it was 30,000 of them printed, and this book's with way higher print runs that go for way more money. I was on this book a while back, and I really like the idea of them taking Gwen and Invincible and merging them, together like that. It's not an official thing, but just playing with that idea and still in the Marvel trade dress is very unique to me. And Gwen is definitely becoming that Deadpool type of character where things like this are acceptable to, but not necessarily cheesy, but it's acceptable to have the goofy covers like this. And I think it's a type of collector out there, and I feel this amount of collectors growing that's going to want these types of covers like this, where it's more comedy driven and more spoofs and just fun covers overall. So I like this book a lot, long term and short term.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like the Amalgam comics that came out in the 90s, and where it's just like kind of like a spoof off of like two characters that like the chat is saying, that we'll never see like kind of merge together. But at the same time, during this time period, you also have like all these different Gwen books where they cross over different characters, like Gwendoc or who else? Gwen Window. All kinds of like where it was like that monthly theme cover where it has a like any character, they kind of put Gwen on top of it.
Well,
like there's a Gwen.
I was gonna say, and let's also not forget that, like, back when Marvel was willing to play nice with other publishers, there was a crossover between Spider-Man and Invincible.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, we did have a Marvel team up of those two characters. So, the likelihood of this happening, but like it's still a great collector piece for somebody who is a Spider-Man / Spider Universe / Invincible collector completionist. So
yeah, definitely. All right.
At number 6, we have R.L. Stine, Just Beyond #1, Halloween Fest Free Ash Can from 2019. So this is the first Just Beyond in comic form. It's an ash can. So there's a Disney Plus series dropping in October. Perfect timing for the spooky season stuff. So there's the notes that and the shout out to Blue Green Artifact. This is one of his picks. I don't feel like there's any question mark here. R.L. Stine is just a win. Like, if you go back and look at this man's filmography of things that he's done that's been converted into television shows and things like that, they all get multiple season runs. Like, it's just the times may change at the studio that he's that they're doing that property with, but it's not for any lack of people watching. It's just they shift and want to go in a different direction, or doing something that's spooky all year long may not just hit the mark sometimes with people. But yeah, I mean, everything from the likes of, I want to say there was a previous Fear Street, there's the current Fear Street, there's Goosebumps, there is like mostly ghostly. I mean, like countless TV shows of the 90s and the early 2000s were converted into very popular shows through from R.L. Stine. Like, I mean, he's got the nostalgia play. He's got he's just general modern day pop culture horror. Like, it's kind of a no brainer. So if this really resonates, I can definitely see those R.L. Stine like completionists and fans. And I mean, even if you're not, I mean, I definitely would love to grab a copy of this just to have my collection. So
yeah, I mean, R.L. Stine like hits that nostalgia factor. Like, I'm sure you and I, Chris, could probably relate to this the most on the panel right now. Is that what were the books that we had choices
Scholastic
of?
Book Fair
Was Goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember like every year, that's the book I'm gonna go like pick up and then like trade with my friends to fill out the rest of the books, because it's like kind of like reading like a Twilight episode or Twilight Zone episode.
Yep.
I
mean, the Haunted Mask 2, the Beast from the East. I mean, like, those Goosebumps stories were, our kiddie introductions into horror if you're a horror fan, and then you continue to mature with his works and stuff, and then maybe found your way into other like horror literature and things of that nature. But like, yeah, like R.L. Stine was that gateway drug for a lot of people who consider themselves to be like horror fans to this day. So yeah, this is absolutely a smart play. I wish I had thought of it. So yeah, shout out to Blue Green Artifacts for picking this one.
Yeah, and then Just Beyond is also option now, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a Disney Plus series that drops in October for Just Beyond. So.
Nice. Sounds pretty exciting.
At number 5, we have Daredevil, Volume 2, issue number 51.
Yeah, so this was submitted as like a 2-part book, but I decided to go ahead and separate them from Pat Lack also. But the one thing I do remember about this, like whenever Echo got announced on to being a Disney Plus show, was that they weren't using 9 or 10 for the cover. They were using this cover 51 to promote like, hey, Echo is coming to Disney. And so I thought it was like a great pick, just based off of that. And if as Ninth Wonder was saying, that you could just go into back issues and still find this cover for like cover price, that kind of blows my mind. Like, why would they intentionally choose this cover if they weren't going to either take part of the story arc and use it for the series?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, at this point, like people are saying in the comments, somebody just shouted out that like there aren't a whole lot of Echo keys. So definitely like the ones out there, the amazing cover plays that feature her, definitely scoop those up. They're planning on doing a lot with this character. What you may believe about them, backdoor reintroducing Kingpin into the MCU. She's very heavily tied to, like, her origin story is very heavily tied to the Kingpin. So again, like, this character has a lot of opportunity to be, a anti-hero for a minute in the MCU that could be leveraged for, as a foil for street level heroes. So definitely grab these books while you still can. For a lot of people, that 9 and 10 is kind of out the building. So yeah, like if you can find these in back issue bins, because people, psychologically and chronologically have a bad habit of being like, oh yeah, 9 and 10, and don't think about anything past 9 and 10 really. And they're definitely not looking, as far back as 51 through 55. So definitely get out there and scoop those books up while they're still out there.
Well, the crazy part too was like people were like, if they were picking up 9 and 10 and then they skip over 11, because like she's dead center on the cover of that too. And yeah, I remember when people were scooping up 9 and 10, and then I was like, behind a little, so I was picking up 11s for like cover price. And then when Knife and I we went to Fan Expo recently, 10 was on the wall everywhere for like $150. Like that was like the lowest price I saw, because I was kind of looking for a 10. And then I was like, okay, let me see if like they accidentally just didn't grab one out from their back issue bins. And then, there I see 11, and then boom, $20 price tag right off the bat. So I was like, kind of like, well, I'm glad I picked up those.
So, just real quick, see, like this is what we do when we speculate, right? So, it's what's connected, right? So we already know this character is going to be a thing, right? So, and when you talk about, well, there's not many keys out there, well, go and get them. You know what I mean? And go pick them up. Anything with I mean, it's the same thing with Kang. Everybody was looking for how you play key,
Oh,
or
you're breaking up there.
or eventually they could be bigger books. I mean, so Aaron hit the nail on the head with picking up number 11. Like, eventually it will be. Get them on the cheap. Go to those dollar bins and pick those up. That's what we do. We kind of see what connects. I mean, because eventually it does. That's what all these other books have done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just telling somebody the same thing about the Canon the Last Padawan run. I was like, it's not a lot of Canon covers out there. I was like, he don't have a lot of books out there that you can buy. It's the same way with Riri. She don't have a lot of books out there that you can buy.
With her
I
on the
mean,
cover, right?
Yeah, with her on the cover, or just centric around her, because she only had one volume. She basically had one solo series, and then she had the stuff from Invincible Iron Man. I was like, that's not a lot to collect. Like, if we collect Iron Man, we can go so far back, and collect Iron Man books. But a lot of these newer characters, these modern characters that don't have a lot on the plate, those books start to shrink down quicker, because people start, when they can't get one thing, they get something else. And then what happens? All right, it's ate up. So all the prices is up on everything, and that's why I tell people, a book it doesn't have to be a key for it to have value.
Right,
It's a
because
lot of
because
reasons.
the shows will make the key,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's the cover and the movie or the TV show will help build that key. Just get a good cover, like Riri. She don't have many covers at all. We were talking yesterday about like beautiful the number 2 with her iPod sitting in class. I mean, there's some beautiful covers out there, Riri, and nobody's really scooping them up.
No, absolutely.
So here's a little cornbread before we move on. So if you're looking for Kanan books, besides just the Kanan the Last Padawan, look into Star Wars Adventures, the IDW series, like some of the B covers and some of the RI 1 and 10s. You can find a lot of Kanan covers in those. And then, like, for example, like issue 7, that's Hondo's first appearance. Like, on the B cover and the 1 in 10, he's on both those covers. So I mean, there, right there, you have a first appearance and you have a Kanan cover, which has a Rebels like story in it. So there you go.
Cool.
And number 4, we have Invincible Iron Man number 8 from 2009, the variant.
Yeah, so this has been one of my all-time favorite covers for a long time, right? So, like, Madame Mask, as she's in play, I've heard rumblings that she could appear in the Hawkeye series, and there was a couple of stories with her going against Clint Barton and Kate Bishop, and you don't know if they do anything like that, but the minute some villain is brought up as a possibility, whether it's Kingpin or a Lady Bullseye or a Madame Mask, I mean, you got to take it. You got to take it seriously. I mean, especially like this book, it's cheap. You can pick this book up for $5-10. I mean, but like for cover alone, Jesus. I mean, it looks expensive. I mean, it's just one of those. And it looks like that mask is made out of gold, because she's a disfigured character and she wore that mask to kind of cover her face up, but like she appeared in the MODOK series, right, briefly, and then I think she had a stint, like one episode on Agent Carter. I think the second season. So like they've been trying to do stuff with her. So like that could be in play. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful pick. I don't know who picked this book, but it's been one of my favorites. Sienkiewicz, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At number 3, we have Once and Future, number 1 from 2019.
I'm not sure who submitted this book, but I know a few of us have been talking about Once in the Future, and it's a retired monster hunter and her grandson team up to stop an Arthurian legend monster that has been conjured. It's a comic series that's been running for 2 years now, but it is managing to still kind of fly under the radar when it comes to TV or movie hype. The plot has been on the makings for screen success. When it comes to boom titles, Once in the Future comes into second for Something is Killing the Children. And then, even Ross Ritchie has kind of given the same kind of treatment for his Instagram, where he's listed out the top 5 rarest Once in Future books that aren't store exclusives or con exclusives. And so like, he's like, feeding us cornbread, where he tells you exactly these are the lowest points of the book. And then we've even seen spikes in like some of those later printings. I mean, I know that some of those books were like either shielded or fake buys or whatever, or fake sales. But I mean, like, it still doesn't stop the point that like this is a very good title. I am reading it. Still a little bit behind, but I've definitely enjoyed it. Like, because you think like when you hear like King Arthur, you think like, oh, it's going to be like medieval time. No, it's not. It's brought up to modern time, and then it makes references to that time period of different classical stories. So, great book.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the number 1, I'll tell you this about Once in Future, because I actually like this series and I collect a lot of books from this series. Man, it is hard to find these things in high grade because they use a good quality paper, but once those books are damaged, that's it, bro.
Oh, yeah.
It's no bringing it back. Every spine tick is going to be color breaking. I had a 9/8 come back on a Once in the Future 8th print for a guy that bought it for me off of Whatnot, and I was kind of certain it was a 9/8, but I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous all the way up until that thing came back, and when it came back a 9/8, I was still a little shocked because, man, those books pick up everything. So this book was printed 8 times, but most of the printings are pretty low. And then any of the printings with black covers on it they're gonna be a hard 9/8. So that's just something else to take into consideration on this, is that I don't think you're gonna see 9/8 just flying out left and right on these, because they really can't. They don't have a lot of pressable defects with them.
No, it's like they told the publisher, like, yeah, it didn't sell out. What? It didn't sell out? Well, I'm going to put out a second print. And then they call them, no, it didn't sell out again. What? You know what? They haven't read it yet. I'm going to throw out a third one. And then before you know it, there's like 8 printings, bro. Jesus, man.
Well, damn. Yeah, and the first print's current value is like anywhere from $10 to $20. But for a good year since the book released, I was finding first print A covers for cover price like all day anywhere I was going to, like for a very long time, until some of those later printings started like spiking up in price, and then when Ross Ritchie was telling us, oh, these are the rarest books. So. Yeah,
like there's got to be a reason why he's pointing out like these are the rarest books. Like he's trying to tell you something without telling you something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also there was and I was fortunate enough to like pay attention when this book dropped. So I was able to snag Some very clean copies of the cover A from my LCS back in Atlanta. And also they were very gracious enough to give me the one per store at cover price. So I was able to pick that up. Whether or not it's a 9.8, there's definitely like one solitary spine tick on it because it is a solid black cover. But hey, we'll roll the dice. Maybe somebody at CGC is having a good day. So. At number 2, we have Paper Girls number 1 from 2015. All right, so this is a book that really needs little to no introduction. It is Brian K. Vaughan at his best. And if nothing else, Brian K. Vaughan can get books optioned. Whether or not they'll stay around past being optioned, that remains to be seen. A la Why the Last Man. But if nothing else, there's money to be made here. People have forgotten about this. In full transparency, they did lose their showrunner around the beginning of August for this. So I would lean to believe that filming is still underway if they're still worried about a showrunner in early August. But that just means that you got time to go out there and find copies in the wild. Shops are hip to this. They know the book's like hot, so you're not getting it out of a dollar bin. But you still can probably negotiate your way into a probably sub $20 raw. I was able to find a copy at a LCS here. It was $23, and after negotiations and a little bit of discount work, I was out the door at somewhere closer to $18. So they're out there. They can be had. If you don't want to take the risk, go ahead and just grab you a 9.8, which can be had for sub $200 at this point. But it's a great story. Not an absurd print run, but ain't small either. It's 75K, and there are currently 1,700 9.8s on the CGC census. But we also know that don't matter once if it's good enough and people are paying attention. Print runs of that number don't really mean a thing if it's got that swing, as they say. So
yeah, I'm just like you. Like whenever I find these books are like around that $20 range, I'll pick them up. Ask Nine if I was picking them up at like pretty much any booth I could find them for in that $20 range. Just because it's a smart play.
Absolutely. And at number 1, we have Fear, Volume 1, number 19. So this was one of my picks. Apologies for my absence for the last week or so on the show. I had work to take care of, but I made sure I came back with the force and got something at the top of the list as best I could. So this is the first appearance of Howard the Duck. So this goes back to that conversation we were having earlier about things that were set to release on Hulu that got shelved. Again, as we've seen with MODOK, that is not necessarily the case, and even Hitmonkey for that matter. I think that one was also supposed to be shelved, and then all of a sudden, surprise, it's dropping on November 17th. So the logic here is, and this is even before yesterday's episode of What If, there have been whispers and murmurs that Howard Duck was going to be making another appearance at some point in What If, and it was, the Party Door episode. He makes an appearance, no spoilers, go watch the episode. But yeah, so a little bit of background about Howard the Duck's current incarnation. Voiced by Seth Green, as we were just talking about, of the creator and success behind Robot Chicken. Green is really good friends with James Gunn. That's the reason why he got asked to be the voice of Howard the Duck. He has now been featured prominently, not just a background character like they did in a couple of these episodes. He is actually interacting, talking with the people who are main to the current story that's happening in What If. This is feeling like a litmus test for a potential backdoor pilot for Howard the Duck. It's they're putting them back in front of people again. They're seeing if there's buzz there, seeing if people are actually interested. And we're probably going to see them, again, hit us with the surprise, here's the Howard the Duck series on Hulu, out of nowhere type of situation. It doesn't take there's little to no leaks ever with a television show, like an animated TV show like this, because people can record from the comfort of their own home. You don't catch anybody out in the streets in costumes. artists and writers can work quietly in their offices, and all of a sudden you've got a finished product in like a couple months worth of work. Again, it's got a nostalgia play to it. Anybody who's my age or a little bit older remembers Howard the Duck being the actual first Marvel property brought to screen in live action. Like it predates the terrible Captain America movie, those New Horizon films with the Punisher, and yeah, by no means was it a great movie, but I mean it was Steven Spielberg and
George Lucas was producing.
It was Spielberg and Lucas. So say what you will about it, like it wasn't bad for not trying. It's just they didn't know really what to do with the character, and they made some missteps. But yeah, it's been long enough that all of us forgot about how bad that movie is, and just remember for the nostalgia that it was of being like, oh man, cartoon Doug making out with Leah Thompson on screen. And to modern audiences, it's just a weird, interesting, cool character now. So that's my logic. These books can be had from anywhere from $50 to $100 for really clean, high grade copies. If you're not willing to take the risk, you can go out there and snatch you up a 75, 80 or better off of eBay for probably somewhere in the $400 to $500 range or so. Yeah, I mean, again, speculation, but I would go out there and probably find you a copy of this because I have a sinking suspicion probably by the summer we're going to be getting an announcement of a Howard the Duck series.
Yeah, I mean, like it's only a matter of time. And you want to know something? Like on YouTube, they had like 1976 New York Comic Con, right? And so that Howard the Duck first issue had just dropped, and the book was 25 cents. Mm-hmm. So they had a reporter saying, going up to some comic dealers, goes, yeah, we just sold our last copy for like $10. And she goes, you're talking about a 25-cent comic book? Yeah. And it's already at $10, So like when you think about like now, that still happens. I mean, like something catches fire and it takes on a life of its own. Like Howard the Duck back in the 70s, like people honestly wanted to vote him as president. So there was like a campaign for Howard the Duck to be president.
Yeah, he was featured on, what was that, Boom?
Oh,
Boom
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's got that iconic Boom cover. Here, I don't want to lie to you. Let me double check which issue that was.
I totally forgot about that. You're right, Chris.
Well, then they also have like some of those modern variants where it's like vote Duck, and it's like him on a campaign button.
Yeah.
Yep. So Boom 15 was the Howard the Duck cover. So
one thing I really hope, if they do introduce Howard the Duck into the MCU, I hope we get to see Kiss into the MCU.
Oh, that would be crazy. Yeah.
No, that would be interesting.
No, but that's a smart play. That's a tough book to find in the high grade, man. I mean,
it is. It was. Those Fear books were not taken care of. I've found them before at like half price books. Matter of fact, I still got a stack of the Fear 11 and 14 that need to go off the CDC to be graded. They definitely aren't lookers, but hey, they'll probably still grade out to somewhere in the 5 to 5.5, 6 range. So
yeah, they wouldn't be like throwing them in all this stuff if there wasn't something, So it was pretty cool seeing them pop up, and no spoilers, but like it was pretty cool. It was pretty funny. So like I think there's something there to play on for sure.
And before we go into our roundtable discussion, I just want to take this moment to promote Mama Comics. Lucy from Comic Book Women is doing a Whatnot sale tonight, right after this show ends. I think it's like 8:30 Pacific. So make sure to tune in on Whatnot to catch her sale, because I saw the preview of her books that she's selling. They look pretty good to me. So I'll probably be bidding on books that I need in my collection.
Nice.
All right, so let's jump into this round table discussion. All right, so buying slabs versus buying raw. This is a topic that I wanted to serve up to the panel and ultimately the community as well. So it's a constant mental balancing act of what makes more sense and when. So the logic here is not necessarily when a book is still relatively prevalent, available in raw copies. In that situation, it almost always makes sense to buy raw, unless you're talking a book that's almost an impossible 9.8. If you're going to be just chucking shit at the wall, excuse my language, it eventually just makes more sense to just guarantee get a copy and go out there and get you a 9.8. Case in point, I wish I had this queued up a little bit better.
Here, let me show you my first example, because I think it kind of falls into your category.
Okay, well,
if you want to show a book first, go for it.
So, Aliens. I do not have this book in a 9.8, and I probably will. Like, I've got another 2 copies, I think, at Red Hood on their way to CGC. One of them is probably a 9.6, realistically. But yeah, this is a book that is next to impossible, like we were talking about earlier with those Once and Futures. It's a very hard book to get back in the 9.8 because, as you can see, the cover is a window box of solid black. I've seen these books that if you stare at them too hard, they'll get a fingerprint on them. Like, it's just that ink will lift, and people were not taking care of these. They were an issue associated with a existing property, so it wasn't like, oh man, like this is the first appearance of the aliens. Like, oh, this is the first appearance of the aliens in a comic book. So it didn't start really picking up heat until much later. So they weren't typically taken care of. So yeah, this is a very hard 9.8, and if the opportunity arises to buy one in a 9.8 and at a reasonable price, probably makes sense to buy it and not necessarily just keep shoveling money at CGC to try and pull out a 9.8. Knife, you want to say something?
Yeah. So Mighty Mel V just sent me a text, and he figured out the answer to our question about the Invincible, the Invincible 135 variant. Basically, what happened is that Image ended up shipping out a lot of the black and white variants instead of the color cover to a lot of comic shops. So that's the color was supposed to be open order, and that would have been like the standard cover, but the black and white ended up taking its place due to a production error. So that's how the color cover ended up becoming the more rare cover of the 2.
Nice, appreciate that.
And then, as you were saying earlier, like, do you like talking about the book with like a high print run and stuff like that? Like, do you buy it raw at a grade? Is it tough to get? And then here's my example for that. ASM 300. There's over 20K graded right now in just the CGC census, and then but the price tag on it too. Like, what? Like, is there a certain formula that you use, like, to buy graded books versus buying a raw book and then grading?
So the mental gymnastics, and it's funny you just mentioned that book, because I recently just picked up 2 copies in a 9.6 because of the fact that it just made more sense to just straight up buy it already graded at a 9.6 than it was. So the logic is, and my mental mathematics that happens is, I look at the census, I look at the typical overall cost of acquisition in a raw copy, and like of a decent raw copy. We're not talking about something that's completely beat. We're talking about a decent raw copy. Nobody's selling you an ASM 300 in this current market that is worth great, that has a fighting chance at a 9.4 or better for anything less than $800. So now you're already $800 into the book. To have it at best be an 8.5, which means that you're basically breaking even, maybe a little bit better than even at that point. You're probably realistically hustling backwards at that point, because if you don't press your own books, so you're at a bare minimum of $8 to $10 for your pressing and cleaning, your grading costs, because of the new increase in grading costs, you're looking at, if you're honest about what tier it should belong in, you're looking at a $30 to $40 grading cost. If you're dishonest, then you're looking at $25 minus whatever discount you may get. So that means that you've now got another $35 into the book, the shipping cost to get it to CGC, the return shipping cost to get it back from CGC. So let's go ahead and just call that another $75 tacked on top of that bad boy. So now you're at $875. So you're at $875 to still maybe if you don't break that 9.4 mark, you're only making like $100 to $200 profit.
Right. And then I think you also still need to consider time into that too, because like we know we see the market, you know, I mean, there's certain books that we all follow like pretty closely, like I don't want to say daily, but like at least weekly. And you can see the price fluctuation of books. Like, so, you know, I mean, for example, I mean, I know you talked about ASM 300. Like, did you talk about that on air or backstage? I don't remember. But anyways, you were talking about prices of a 9.6 of what, you know, you saw the increase of price over the last like 2 or 3 days. And like, it was like what, 1,600. And then by the end of the weekend, it was like 2K.
Yeah. So yeah, it was, we were at 1,700. Auctions were ending at 1,700 on Saturday morning. And we just had a sale on Monday or Tuesday at $2,000 even. So it legitimately just like over the course of the weekend leading into Monday or Tuesday, that book increased, like every single auction ended at anywhere from $50 to $100 more than the last one.
Yeah.
And that's auctions. And then people just were like, screw it, and went out there and bought them straight off of my comic book shop. We're just like, you know what? That $1,800 copy don't look so bad now when like I'm not when auctions are ending at $1,835. And that happened over the course of the weekend. So yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of use the same kind of formula. Like when I decide, like, am I gonna buy this book graded? Am I gonna buy it raw? Like that's what I can consider into it. What is the buy-in cost for the raw book? What's the cost of grading, pressing, and then like shipping and all that? Is that cheaper at this moment in time than me just picking up a book that's already graded at an acceptable grade I'm okay with? And for me personally, depending on the age of the book, for moderns, like for modern books, I'll say it's like 9.6 or above. Like it doesn't matter to me for that, because like, you know, that's another thing I guess like that we've been wanting to talk about and on a roundtable with other members was kind of like, if you purchase a 9.6, there's still like giant growth potential of that book from a 9.6 to a 9.8, because like, you know, usually what the rule of thumb is, like a 9.6 to a 9.8 is usually double the cost, but there's easily like plenty of examples. Like the best one I can think of off the top of my head is like Amazing Spider-Man 301. That's like what, a 2K 9.8. If you look at a 9.6, that's only $200.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So another thing to take in consideration is turnaround time. Like you didn't need to necessarily factor that in prior to this current market and CGC having these atrocious turnaround times. It was just like, yeah, I'll get the book back. You know, the seasonal ebbs and flows of CGC and grading. You always knew that, like, man, I could drop a book in, have it be a regular speed modern in January, and I can have that shit back in 2 weeks. Yeah, and so now if you are trying to make moves for books, like on books that are associated with movies happening in March of next year, you need to get them to CGC now for you to have those books back to be competitive at the market. Like if you're trying to do anything around Doctor Strange 2, you need to get your books to CGC now. And so that may affect your decision also, because if you hit December or early January and you ain't got your books back yet, you might just want to go out there and buy some like reasonable price copies of whatever that book is in high grade, and flip those, because you may not get your books back in time to be able to make a move. Case in point, Black Panther 2. Like there was a point where buying those Shuri first appearances raw made all the sense in the world. We have just crossed that like threshold where, like, well, not just crossed, we probably crossed about a month ago, where it does not make sense to buy Black Panther 2 anymore raw. Like unless you get it for a steal, it just doesn't make sense, because the raw copy costs are so high that it's like, again, unless you can guarantee that book's going to come back a 9.6 or better, you're going to probably end up taking a loss for what people are asking for it. And I think Young Avengers, actually, one of my buddies he just posted a copy at $500 raw. And I was like, Jesus. And he was like, have you looked at eBay recently? And I was like, that's another book. Go buy it graded already. It
Absolutely.
don't make sense to buy that book raw anymore if people are getting $500 for that book, or if people are getting $500 for a raw book for you to roll the dice, and you can still pay $1,100 and get a 9.8. Just go buy the damn 9.8. Don't take that chance.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that book, Young Avengers, because like I was on the phone with my buddy. This was about a year ago, and they were like 300, 350, and I said, "Man, I'm just gonna buy 2 9.8s. Fuck it, man." Right?
I mean, it just makes better sense.
Yeah, and I already had a 9.8. I said, "Dude, I'm not fucking around with this. Like that. That's gonna be a big, big book." And
Oh, you're breaking up.
Before he gets back,
Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Yep.
No, and that book's already $1,500 now. So like, it's not going down. Kate
No.
Bishop, she's. I mean, they got the right actress. People are going to love her. That book ain't going down. It's going to be scary how high that book goes, no matter the print run or how many 9.8s there are. Like, if you're going to get a Young Avengers, go get it graded. Like, don't fuck around with it. Like,
Yeah, it could end up being a GSX1.
yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point, Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that analogy compared a lot these days. Like this is the next GSX1, like Young Avengers. I mean, I've also heard it compared on with Star Wars issue 1. I mean,
Yeah.
I could see it, if you're into that fandom, like, which it makes sense. And that was an undervalued, let's be completely honest, that was an undervalued book for the longest time, like way too long, probably at this point.
Sure.
And then I guess another thing that Major Issues was bringing up was CBCS, and I'm gonna take a guess on this, that he's talking about being the person that's first to market. Does the panel here have an opinion about that? Like, is that still a thing? And like, and is CBCS the route to go for that? Like with newer books, like these like hot incentives that like you can get back within like a week and a half or something like that if you're mailing it out to Dallas and then picking it up. I mean, we can't all live in Texas like us and then just drive it up there. But
Yes.
Go for it, Knife.
No, yeah, Knife, you go first, and I want to follow you on this one.
So I feel two ways about that. For me personally, I'm gonna grade with CBCS all day because I live in Dallas, can drive my books down to the office, don't have to pay shipping, don't have to worry about my books getting jacked up and shipping. It's an easier process. It's a money saving process. My intellectual view on it is that I look at slabbing a book as a way to protect my book and to ensure the grade on it, so that when I'm doing transactions online, we don't got to go back and forth about the condition of the book. The condition of the book is already set in stone. Now, some people get impatient as sellers because there's so many people trying to flip, that they done heard so much that, oh, CGC is superior to CBCS and you should get more for a CGC slab than you should CBCS. If you desperate, yeah. But if you're not hurting for money, nah. I want the same thing a CGC gonna go for in a 9.8, especially if the consensus is that CBCS grades tougher. You already know if this is it's a 9.8 in CBCS, you know it's a 9.8. If you don't like the damn case, send it to CGC and get face. If you're just gonna be first to market on the book to sell it for whatever you think you can get, and you just be out the door with it, then you playing yourself. You might as well just wait, send it to CGC and see what the market is going to do with the book. Well, instead of trying to rush and just send it to CBCS because you can get it back faster. That's just hustling backwards. So
Yeah.
that's my take on it. It's all about the person and the approach they take to selling the book.
Now, I could see being first to market on variants and stuff like that. That if you don't turn them, I mean, you could sit on them for a while, but like I think ninth, he knows what to sit on and what to flip. I mean, but you gotta know. You don't want to short sell yourself and just say, "Oh, I'm the first one to have it graded, and I'm going to sell it right now." Man, sometimes you just want to sit on it. Just wait a month and see what happens on some of these books. Man, they could just keep going, and
Yeah.
I hear so many stories of people. Oh man, I sold that and too early, and now it's like $1,000, and I sold it for 200. Like it's your own fault, man.
Yeah. So I actually have a perfect example for that. So, I went to Dallas Fan Expo and they had a Something Is Killing the Children exclusive for issue 19, the 1 in 25 incentive. They made a foil version for Tinian's Spaniel, but he canceled the event, but the store still sold those exclusives to the people first that were attending the panel, and I was like, kind of like, okay, well, I'm here like early within the convention, like let me just go ahead and buy my copy, and I'm going to send it to CBCS on-site grading, because I'm going to assume that like more than like less than a quarter of the people were going to use the on-site grading for that book. It's a limited run of 300 copies, and then and I've seen two on market already. There's a 9.9 and then there's a 9.8, and then my copy hit a 9.6, which is a respectable grade, and I was happy with it because I was caring more about some of the other books I was sending in anyways. It was just something like kind of like last minute, let me go ahead and throw it in. Maybe I'll hit that 9.8 and be one of the first to market. But I mean, raw copies of that, people are asking like how much, like 300 to 400 bucks or something stupid like that, and then the person that hit a 9.9 is asking like 3K, like they're living like on another planet or something like that. Like, just my opinion, but I mean, like, if you're in here watching, like, I'm congrats on your 9.9, but like, let's bring it down a little. Like, let's like put something a little bit more realistic, right? But I mean, it's their book; they can do whatever they want with it. But it's funny to see like a 9.8 from CBCS, like where the starting bid auction is like 250.
Now, so I will say, in response to everything that everybody said, and especially what Knife said, no, like I wholeheartedly feel that the level of quality is pretty much on par between the two organizations. Like, CBCS and CGC. I'm not going to be one of those CGC homers, talking about like, because I have had some shit come back from CGC. Like, everybody goofs it every now and again. Quality control can always be improved at both companies. Like, it is what it is. But the issue is that there is a cultural and like community implicit bias that has dominated with them CGC being the first to market and like doing a damn good job of like sabotaging the competition out there and like promoting themselves. Maybe not to say sabotage, but like any other, like an Apple. Like, we all know that Apple don't make the best products, but Apple is damn good at marketing. And if you have the exact same guts inside of your phone and inside of your Hanwei phone that can compete and run just as fast or better, or that Android is just as fast or just as powerful as the iPhone or better, there is still something that about seeing that little green check show up when it's not blue that people go ew and like get all funky and add funny on. Like, it's just like as a sneakerhead, the when they modernized the Chuck Taylor All-Star 2000, like that was a well-made shoe. But they were not competing with Nike in 1997, 98, 99. Like, it's just once a company has established themselves like that, we as a community basically have to make a unified decision that we're like, no, we're not going to let people talk us out of selling our books at top dollar. But there's a lot of shops that you're not going to be able to walk into with a 9.8 in CBCS. Like, I legitimately knew, like, I talked to somebody, and I mean, it's negotiations, it's the game. I talked somebody out of getting top dollar buying. Like I was buying their Ultimate Fallout 4 and a 9.8 CBCS, and I got that book for under 2K because I was just like, man, it's a CBCS book. I'm gonna flip it. There's a crack in the case. Like, it is what it is, man. Like, I'm not gonna be able to get top dollar for that. Like, I'm gonna have to reholder it, or I'm gonna have to do crossover to get the return on the investment on the book. I'm taking the risk of the crossover. And I mean, yeah, it was a dick move on my part, but if they really weren't willing to like sell their book like that,
Man, I ain't messing with you, Chris. Like,
and then I took that same book, didn't even bother doing all that shit, took it to a local LCS and sold it to them for $400 more, but still about $200 under what a CGC 9.8 would have gone for. Because once again, I knew what the situation was. Like, if I'm trying to get the quick burn on it, it's like, yeah, I understand what the market is. I understand what the cultural, like, and that shop owner also understands what the cultural significance of CGC is versus CBCS. And so until that happens systemically from the bottom all the way up to the top, that people are willing to admit that and make that change and accept that, you know, Adidas is just as good as Nike, then yeah, it's just, you're going to end up in a situation where you are having to accept taking maybe less to move your CBCS book, or you may just have to hold them until somebody's willing to give you, you know, fair and equal money. Because if there's an alternative, if Nike is selling that same shoe at $200, Adidas got to sell it at $180. Like, it's just, that's what the current market is until they're on top and they can be like, nah, now we're charging $200. You can take that shit down the street. Like, you know, we're top dog now and we're not going to negotiate. But until you are truly top dog, you got to negotiate.
so like when you're dealing with those kinds of price points, right? And so like you're going back and forth from 2000 to 1800, like you're holding all the cards, because like I'm trying to sell this book and I'd be damn stupid to like snub my nose at over $200, right? So the buyer, if you've got the money, like the buyer's holding all the cards, saying, okay, well, I'll just go buy it online. All right, I appreciate it. You know, like, whoa. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's where, like, you know, you do your due diligence, and you know, and just like Chris said, like, if knowing the market and knowing that CBCS is not carrying that premium, you know, with some of these books, like that's an edge that you can use to get the seller to come down a little bit. I mean, you know, but
Well, I mean, yeah, but that seller had two things going against him. You know, like
you're right.
the crack in the case too
And
is
like,
probably the biggest thing that probably like made it easier for him to accept whatever offer you were going to actually throw at him. And then also like that he's also considering, oh, he does have to recase it, like with
Yeah, but let's be real
company.
about it though.
Yeah,
That would have been like $20. Like,
that's
that
shit,
I shouldn't have walked out the door with that book for $400 in the market, under CGC market on a damn case crack.
bro, like that's man law. When you're cracking your cases, dude, you're breaking man law, bro. Like, take care of your shit. Like, especially if you're trying to sell it. I mean, that just.
Yeah, I will rehold a book in a heartbeat.
Oh, man.
All right, cool. You ain't about to beat me over the head over, like, because cats will come out of nowhere and be like, oh man, that's gonna cost me $50. So I'm like, I bet. Don't worry about it. I'll send this shit back to CGC, and then I'll get top dollar for it. You're not going to talk me out of $50
like,
for you to go rehold a book.
If you're sitting on a cracked slab of a premium book, get it reholdered, because you're not going to be able to get max value for that. Like, let's talk about that.
I just tell people like this: amateurs negotiate price, pros negotiate terms. So for me, I'm good with either company. I buy the book at the best price I can get it for. I don't care if it's CGC or CBCS. I'm not rocking no PGX or EGX because I don't know about the level of consistency with grading, but I done tested CBCS and CGC both ways, taking a couple of CBCS books, cracking the case, sending it to CGC, seeing what I tested it both ways.
Yep.
And I would say CBCS is a little bit more consistent, but in the end, it's about the same because they saying they got a process, right? They saying the book go through 3 people or whatever, right? And it's a consensus on the grade. And I done had books where I done had a book. This book right here. Got this in a 9.4 off of eBay for like $40 ship. Read the grader's notes on it. It said that it was fingerprints on the back. So I'm looking at it through the case. I get the black light, bro. I don't see no fingerprints on there. Don't do nothing to it. Crack the case, send it in. It come back a 9.8 with CBCS. Now, if CGC had 3 people look at this book, you telling me all 3 of them saw fingerprints on the back that wasn't there?
They put their fingerprints on it, man.
Oh yeah, because they don't wear gloves.
They don't wear gloves, man.
It was no fingerprints on the book. So
I mean, I'm not trying to bring back that like old video or anything like that.
Dude.
But like, yeah, but that that was pretty funny how they were handling that book. And then also, I kind of I guess want to circle back around to an example that we showed last week, because I'm not here to promote like, hey, go buy up like expensive convention exclusives, because we have a perfect example here where you have Usagi Yojimbo number 10 CGC 9.8 that was sold at auction for $120. 4 days later, a raw copy sold for $150. So I mean, like, this is a perfect example of the conversation we're having. Like, if you had that opportunity to buy that 9.8, buy the 9.8, right? If you want this book graded. But I mean, like, if you're just looking, to keep the book raw, whatever, like maybe get it signed later. I mean, you're paying extra, and then if you're gonna get it graded again, anyways, like, you're paying way more than like what the original price tag was.
Yeah, it really all depends on like also to what do you want out of your books. Like I do buy raw. Like I buy raw all the time. Like I'm actually 99% of the time I'm buying raw. I've got a stack sitting on that, multiple stacks that need to go out to be pressed. I've got books currently in Red Hood's possessions. I've got books in Big Leg's possession. I got books in the comic book presser Chris Meyer's possession out in North Carolina. Like I keep like 25 to 50 books in people's hands at any given time. So I'm a firm believer in buy raw, but sometimes it just don't make good sense. And it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Like case in point, if I'm trying to move, perfect example, if you think that Venom will be making, that there's a post-credit scene in Venom that signifies he will be in the MCU, don't go buy that book raw right now. Just go buy you a 9.6. Like, just go buy you a 9.6.
Yeah.
And just put it away.
Right. So, like, you got to be decisive on a big purchase like that. You can't be in one camp or the other. Oh, I'm going to get it raw. I'm going to get it pressed. Then I'm going to get it graded, and it's going to come back. Like sometimes, in the essence of time and money, like you got to be decisive and make the buy, because you're going to be kicking yourself and been crying, and then hating on other people's books and hating on that's a terrible like play and all that. You know how most people do when they don't like get the book, you know? So, well,
here's an example of a book that I bought already graded. It's a TMNT number 3. And the main reason why I purchased this was not because I didn't have one, because I already have one signed, same grade and everything. I bought it because it was a double cover. And then finding out more of the history of the book, Nico used to own this before the seller that sold it to me. So, I mean, it's just like a kind of funny story that I like to tell. That like, someone from Flipside that originally owned it, and it ended back up with someone that's on Flipside too. So it's just kind of funny how like it went full circle. So
yeah, I did want to say, because I feel like I never really answered the question about raw versus graded books, and I'm team raw all day. How the old dirty bastard say, "Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw." Yeah, man, I'm team raw all day. Some of my best finds have been raw books, man. This Vengeance, First American Chavez right behind me was a raw book. Bought it for $200. At the time, it made sense because it was a little bit lower than where high grade books was going for on the market, and I really trusted the person that graded the book. They had it at a 9.8. It had never been pressed. So no, they had it at a 9.6 and it had never been pressed. I'm like, yeah, we can probably get it to a 9.8, and of course, it came back 9.8. And then I also feel like if you're not gonna go raw, the next best thing would be to look for copies that are already graded, and that I say, it really don't. You can go eight. I didn't. The guy that presses my books, Chris from Slab Hub Comics, I don't see him take 8 O's up to a 9.8, but it's about finding the defect, finding the reason for the grade. You find the reason for the grade, you can bump it up. So that's something that I'm into doing now. And I don't go out and try to find big keys. You find most of your steals, like in that Naomi #1 I just showed, 35, $40, for a 9.4. That's a $200 9.8, and I'm maybe about $70 into that book. So that's where you're gonna make your money is, on the low end keys, because when people get those 9.4s and 9.6s back, they just want to sell those as fast, as fast as possible. Another book I just got, I snatched this in a 9.6 off of a website. I'm looking at it and it looks like a 9.8 all day. No color breaking spine ticks, nothing crazy going on with the book. So I can resubmit it. Worst case, I get a 9.6 back. And best case scenario, I get a 9.8 back. And this book can go from anywhere to $350 to $500. I paid $100 for it. So it's potential it's potential doing it both ways. I just wouldn't. If you have to figure out what your goal is. If you want a 9.8 in the book, it's like Chris said, look at the price. If a raw is going for $5, just go buy the 9.8, because you will spend what the 9.8 costs real quick trying to flip that raw copy, into a high grade 9.8.
So, like, you see what Chris did, right? So he could have picked up a couple of 9.8s if he wanted to of Amazing Spider-Man. But let me tell you, there's there's a ton of growth in that 9.6, and
Yeah.
to where it's going to be easy for him to sell as that 9.8 just ridiculously gets out of reach. Somebody will want a 9.6.
So
you see what I'm saying?
That is
That's
a
the
conversation.
play.
So, and that'll be a conversation for a later show. But the conversation around who's buying 10 grand plus books. And there's a certain point where, like, yeah, it's cool sometimes to have the highest graded example that you can afford of a book, but you should probably keep one that still you can keep liquid, because you will eventually put yourself in a position where, like, who's going to buy that book? Like, case in point, in my box right now, like in my, my core collection, like the books that I'm like, we need a certain special Marvel announcement before I'm going to sell those. I've got a Hulk 181 9.6. I also got a 9.4. I've got a giant size 9.6. Also have the 9.4, because the 9.6s, respectively, from each one of those books are like 20 something and 30 something K books. Like, there are not a whole lot of people who are going to hand me like new car money for a comic book, but there's people who will pay 14K, and even then, that's still a smaller audience. But there's a larger audience of people who will give me 14K for a book than people who will give me 28,000 for a book. So, absolutely. Like, you still, like, if you're trying to, like, be able to move a book and have it be liquid in a reasonable amount of time, like, having a 9.8, like, buying 2 9.6s versus buying the 1.98, or buying 3 9.6s versus the 1.98, I'll be able to move an ASM 300 and a 9.6 any day of the week before I will find somebody who's willing to give me 7K for a 9.8.
Yeah, very true. Let's go ahead and do like final thoughts, either on the subject or anything that you want to promote for this coming up weekend.
So here, let me throw out one more thing, and I just want to show this real fast, because Knife was talking about the whole, like, when it really makes sense to buy raw. The day and age of me being able to pull this off is probably gone. I bought this book raw. I bought this book from shout-outs to my parents' basement in Avondale Estates in right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I bought this from them raw. We came to a number that made sense. And once it was graded, I was at that time up $3,000. They got what they needed out of it. They aren't a shop that grades comic books. I had the cash money, and we came to a number that made sense. Now, this is a $46,000 book. And it is because of the fact that I was willing to take a couple grand risk on it and buy it raw. Do I recommend always doing that? Your mileage may vary, because I've also had books come back restored. Luckily, I know how to remove restoration, so I cut that shit straight out that book and sent it back to CGC. Took a great point hit, but it worked out. So again, like, in this current market, might be hard to pull off, but if you are willing to take the risk and, you know, saving yourself 3 G's makes sense to you, but if it's also the fact that you could pay, you know, XYZ money and then it comes back restored and now you just lost like $4,000 or $5,000 in value, again, you have to do what makes sense for you as a collector. But, you know, sometimes there are those like success stories where, you know, playing the raw game, putting the work in, putting the time in will pay dividends. But yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And to add on to yours a little bit, like, you know, and it also depends on like the age of the book that you're dealing with. Like when you're dealing with graded comics versus raw comics, like, and then restoration is a big thing. And then even knowing like the sizing of the book, because like, you know, once you see it's trimmed, there's no turning back from that. There's no restoring from that. So that's something also to be careful with when dealing with Silver Age books.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you seen it before, Red Hood, that someone sent you a raw book and it was like, and then you're like, just kind of like, hey man, you know this book is trimmed, right? And then
those are always tough conversations to have, man. You know, because I put myself in the owner's shoes, and I know how much that they spent on the book, and I said, man, I got the black light on it, dude. Like, it's not good. I said, it might pass, you know, but like after I send it off, like it's like you make the call, you know. So like, luckily, a couple of times where I felt there was restoration, it came back okay, but other times I was correct, you know. Yeah. And I told them, you know, you could ask for restoration removal, but you know, when they do that, they may take strip some color off of the book and knock it down a grade, or like they may be able to just delicately take it off and really not, you know, depending on where it is. Most of the time it's around the spine, close to the staples, like, and if it's black, man, you're screwed, you know. But that's typically where you want to look for the restoration, is around the spine. But yeah, dude, those are always tough conversations. So I had that conversation with a buddy of mine. He wasn't too happy just recently. So, but it's all good. So he's going to gamble. He's set it in. So we'll see. It was on a Kang book, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, I have 2 things real quick. You know, and don't forget also, like, you know, color touch can happen on like modern books or even Copper Age books. You know, I have a sad story of getting an ASM 300 that was sold to me like when I was, you know, first kind of getting into like grading and all that. The person said, "Oh, it's a very fine year mint," and then I was like, when I got it in person, I was like, "No, this isn't a very fine year mint." But I've already submitted the paperwork to a grading company and signing company that they were going to get Stan Lee and Todd McFarlane to sign it. And then, so I sent it in anyways. Like, I was like, okay, they're both going to sign it. There's not going to be too many of them, you know, having signings together. And so let me just send it in anyways. When I finally got my book back, it came back restored, like slight color touch. And then by that point in time, I had so much money invested into it that it wasn't worth me like even paying for the restoration removal. I mean, with the prices they are now, I might consider it now, like to actually send it through CCS for restoration, removal, whatever, blah blah blah. But I mean, until this point of like 3 or 4 years, I had already sunk so much money into it that it wasn't worth anything. I mean, I could potentially sell it now, like just for the autograph factor, and someone else like spending the money to get the slight restoration, removal, or whatever. But is it worth it? I don't know.
So like you talked about that. I think that adds character, right? You got all that shit going on with the book, right? So you
Right.
got a resto label, then you got Todd, you got Stanley, and then what was the grade?
6.5
Shit, I mean
or
that's
6.0,
just
6.0.
that's just a shitload of character on that
Yeah.
book. You know what I mean? Like
It's like it's a well-loved book, but I mean,
absolutely,
but if
absolutely.
it would have, I guess it would have meant a little bit more sentimental value if it was my book from when I was a kid or whatever. And it's not; it's someone else's. So to me, it's kind of like it's why I got so good at picking out raw books and sending them in to get super high grades. Like now, I check everything like before I buy a raw book, like just because like I don't want to take that risk again. Like I'm putting X amount of dollars, whether it's like several hundred or 1,000 for a raw book, and to potentially get that high grade. But I mean, that's just
So like the whole this whole topic was raw or graded, right? I think
right.
Aaron makes a great point. If you're going to just stick to raws and then you're going to level up from there and then send it off to get graded, get good at grading. Like get good at grading. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to play that game, you're going to play the long game and build up and level up, get good at grading. Understand that like there could be defects inside the book as well as outside the book. So
Absolutely.
when people get their book back, hey, there's nothing wrong with this. Well, there's a page bent inside. You
Yeah.
know, So I mean, that's a thing. So when you're looking, hey, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's like, and sometimes the grader's notes, you're not going to have the same guy grading your book. So like if you attack whatever they say on the grader's notes, that's what they saw. Well, you're not going to get Joe Schmo grading oh, here it is again. Oh, he fixed it. Oh, 9.8. Yeah, it don't happen like that. It's going to go into somebody else's hands with a different set of eyes, and so you're taking that risk also. I mean, so get good at grading your books if you're going to play the raw game and level up. I mean,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
otherwise, just be decisive like Chris and just say, you know what? I know that book is going to continue to go up, and it's liquid. I'm just going to buy it because and that's the way you got to be when you're dealing with uh, this kind of money. Like you better be decisive. Like because if you wait around, like that ship is going to sail, and you're going to regret it. Especially when like that book it's not going to go down. It's like a major property, and it's just like there's so much still going to happen. It's like why not?
Specsman, it is Lakers colors. It's purple on the top and then gold on the bottom. So
Man, you should go get that book so we can see it, Aaron.
oh yeah, okay.
Get
And
it
then I'll
real
let
quick, man. I
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
see it. I may make him an offer, man.
Let's say ninth. You got any parting words for the audience?
Yeah, I do got some parting words for the audience.
Second prints are good. Second prints are good, right? Those were
So I went and got my second COVID shot today.
oh Lord.
Congratulations.
And hold on.
You're gonna get a headache.
Oh wow. Hold on. Let me finish. And damn it, I messed up the joke.
My
I
bad.
got my COVID shot like last year. I had a joke. I had a joke.
Oh, come on, dude! You can't do that.
Yeah.
Come on, finish the joke, man. Come on.
It wouldn't have
All
to be a reference to Nicki Minaj's cousins, whoever down in Trinidad, was it?
No.
And then before we sign off and all that, I do want to recommend again, hop on Whatnot to Lucy's Cell, Mama Comics. She has some really good books up for tonight, and that's where I'm going to be hanging out after this.
Man,
And then,
comic book women had a great show the other night. So if you guys are tuning in, man,
was that the Stephanie Hahn show?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a very good episode, and like so many they definitely. I like their new format, and then like how they cover a lot of books, and it's like books that like either were kind of forgotten about and definitely have like good potential, or books that are like up on the rise too that you can still buy in pretty cheap. But yeah, so this is my reminder book of like be careful of what you're grading, and definitely check everything before just like sending in everything. And the way I knew it was like kind of messed up was that where is it? I don't even see it anymore because they pressed it. Oh, this bottom edge corner, there was a fold over. And then like when I re-looked at the pictures that the person sent me, he left that corner out. Like there's all kinds of stuff that was like that I learned from that, like buying books online, like make sure to ask for plenty of pictures, like front and back cover, blah blah blah. And then like the other thing was like I could see spine ticks and everything. And then when I had the book in hand, and then I was like, kind of like, well, I have like less than a week to send this book out anyways. Like, what do I do? Like, and it was like almost like, do I send a different book instead? But yeah.
Nah, but that's a cool book though, man. It just
it definitely has a lot of stories to it.
Yeah, man, purple and gold, man.
Hey, I'm kind of feeling that purple and gold label.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, you forget that it's like, I mean, when you see Stan Lee and Todd McFarlane and it's Amazing 300, I mean, like, it's just cool,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's gotten to the point now that I can recover the money I sank into the signatures, the cost of the raw book, and the grading. That I could like make a little, even at it being restored. So
one last thing. So like when you start like taking a book and saying what am I into this book for, and say you crack it open and send it in, and like I'm already into it for this, man. Like all of us here, we've made plenty of kills where we've made monster profit. So like on books like that where you got to crack it open and send it back in again, like you're already ahead if you speculate well and you do, and we wouldn't be here. So like Aaron, like you shouldn't even be thinking that because I know you've made some kills, right? So like that's just the thing you can't get caught up in. Like
I mean, there's definitely some other books I have like coming up that I know that are going to be like hitting like really big soon. So I have them like queued up and ready to go. Like whenever I get that message. I mean, not that message, but what I mean. The call like, hey, like this is popping, and it's kind of like, all right, I'm ready for it. So
you're good, man. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like I like to keep it around as that, like, to keep me motivated, and so people like that are not honest in comics, that I can call them out for that. You know what I mean? Like you have the information now to be prepared for pretty much anything at this point.
So next week, Aaron's going to give us the owner's name of who sold that book to him. So and we'll see if he still sells on eBay and give him a shout out. It's a good show, man. Good show.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go ahead and do the sign off. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our great content. Tomorrow is the Hot 10, and you don't want to miss that because Stein's list is always amazing. And we'll catch you on the flip side.